Hello again, everyone. Todd Michael Putnam from Creative Adventure Tables bringing you another adventure table idea, and this is the Raging Rapids. The Raging Rapids. And the idea behind this one is this is a travel session, and the players have to travel through a certain area, through this one forest. But the forest a long time ago was part of the elven homeland, but for reasons unknown, the elves left the area, but they cursed it. They put a curse on it that basically said that the inhabitants of this forest would be hostile to any humans or dwarves that tried to enter this area. So there was obviously a great deal of anger or frustration for whatever reason that this supposed curse had been laid upon the land. And yet, traveling downstream through the rapids is the fastest way to get to where the players need to go to. And so that is what this is when the players choose to go down through the streams and do the rapids, they have to contend with it. And this map is an example of a map that's contiguous, meaning it's physically all looks like it's together, but it doesn't need to be played that way. It can be played like it's in separate sessions where you narrate, okay, this is what happens in this section, and then a couple hours later you get to this other section, and you can mix it up a bit. You can play it in order, and I'll actually explain that to you as I go along. But just an idea of how you can make it physically, visually pleasing to the eye, to make it look like it's all one straight thing that they'd be going through, but actually gets played up in segments where this might happen in the morning, this might happen in the late morning, this happens in the early afternoon, etc., so on and so forth. And you're just moving the raft and stuff part way down. So I've got my players, my player characters on a raft. I actually have two rafts. There's another one over there, but I'm wielding the camera, so we'll just give you the basics with this one. And the raft that I'm using in this case is actually a door from one of the castle sets that I have. But you know what? It's good enough for a raft. I put three characters on it. And you can see these the river, the grain of the river, if you will. Obviously, it's rushing this way, and it goes up against these walls right here, and then that changes the course of the river. So of course there's this splash right here from the doll stuffing that I use. Obviously indicates that that's where the water is hitting these high cliffs pretty hard. And so when the raft comes out, the first test that the players will have is when the raft comes out. Naturally, the water is going to try and slam that raft up against the walls of these cliffs, the cliffs of insanity, if you will. For those who have watched the the Princess Bride. So and so the players are going to have to make strength checks, and this is the way that I do it. Of course, you could run with whatever mechanics you want. I run Shadow Dark, but the mechanics that I use is the players have to make strength checks. If nobody passes the strength check, then the raft slams up against the cliffs and takes some damage. I roll probably a D4 for some damage, maybe a D6 for some damage. The rafts only have so much hit points, and because the rafts slam up against here as they're going against it, these cave fissures, which are normally on the inside of caves and dungeons and stuff like that, or in the Underdark and stuff, these cave fissures, which basically drop a big long sticky appendage down or whatever, and then grab people and pull them up to munch on them, they're hanging there. They're going to have advantage on the roll to try and attack some of the players because they're going to be right up against the wall here, and there's a chance that first off, if the raft hits the wall, not only does the raft take some damage, there's a chance the players might get knocked off, and these monsters on the first round or two after that happens are going to be advantage on their attacks to get the players. Okay, if one of the players makes their strength roll, then the raft doesn't actually slam into the cliffs, but the creatures are still going to get their attack at advantage. If two of the players are able to make their strength roll, then they don't slam into the cliffs, and the monsters don't attack at advantage because they're able to keep it a little bit farther out. And if all three of the players make their strength checks, then the raft doesn't hit the side, and the monsters attack at disadvantage in order to try and capture the players and bring them up. And of course, this represents a whole bunch of things that can happen where the narrative can kind of go kind of crazy. So what if one of the players gets snatched up and is getting wheeled up? Well, then the players have got to try and slam the raft up against the side somewhere and see if they can find some way that they can, basically moor it so they can try and go capture and release their friend. Are they going to leave them behind? Is it up to the person for themselves to try and escape and just try and jump into the water, and then they're going to have to make all kinds of checks to try and swim in the rapids up to the raft and try and get back on again? Are they just going to use ranged spell attacks or missile fire attacks in order to where everybody stays on the raft, but they try and kill the creature as they're traveling down the river? There's all kinds of different options that could happen in that area. So that's the first encounter that they have, is this harsh corner with the cave fishers. The next one, even though physically, obviously it's right down the side here, could be like, let's say that happens first thing in the morning. Let's say this happens at like 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay, then maybe 2 hours later, they might come across another stretch of the river here, move the raft up just a little bit, the raft up here, where there's a section of the banks, and maybe there's still a big wall that's up along this whole side that they can't do. There's a section of banks that there's angry treants that are in here, and they pick up rocks and boulders and stuff, and they're just throwing them at the raft, trying to sink the raft, cause damage to it. And the players, depending on if they're making their strength checks again and stuff, again, is where they're able to turn the raft fast enough to cause the attacks to be at disadvantage and possibly miss their raft. Again, if they take enough damage on the raft is going to disintegrate, and then they're going to have a whole other set of problems on their hand. So, and of course, if you've got ranged attack characters, they can decide while they're going along, do they want to try and attack them, or do they want to put everything towards just getting the raft out of the way as fast as they can? That's the kind of choice that the players get to make. But essentially, that would be the next encounter, is that the heroes, they're going down this straight section, and they're being attacked by these treants who are angry, probably because of the elven curse, at these humans or dwarves that are invading their territory or attempting to trespass through their territory. So that'd be the next encounter you have. And then depending on how much damage the raft has taken, depending on what their food supplies are and stuff like that, you've got another corner that's over here. You could do another thing where they have to, roll in order to try and avoid taking damage going against this other corner here. But there could also be like, this is the first section that they see, and for a long time, that actually has the option for them to pull the raft up and maybe go through to the forest and get some wood and stuff to try and fix up their raft for any damage that they've taken. So the raft would come up here, the players would come out. That's assuming they can skillfully manage it. Players come out, maybe they try and camp, build a fire, or whatever it is. Then you roll for random monsters to see whether or not, dire wolves or anything like that come out. Maybe none do. Maybe there's a Trent. It could be that they manage that nothing comes out and finds them. But it's an opportunity for them to repair their raft, maybe get some rest in before they continue their journey down the river. So then the next place that they would go, as I try and fit this all with one hand, is, of course, again, in my case, I'd have no more than 3 characters on a raft. I've got anywhere from a 5 to 6 person party, so it might be 2 different rafts that they're using, and that's going to be up there and all along this side as well. But for purposes of the storytelling here right now, I'm just using the one raft for the example. So then they come around, and then you can have some more corner stuff where you can just have, I can use it in this section right here, because you can see how the river turns really hard in this section, and then it turns really hard again, and then it turns really hard again. You've got these 3, 4 90-degree angle basically where the river's slamming around, and those make for some great rapids where the heroes are going to have to work really hard, again, trying not to get their raft damaged, and to keep everybody on board, making sure nobody gets thrown off. And so these are environmental obstacles that they have to deal with as this is going on. Eventually, the raft comes down to another section, again, where there's some high cliff walls. And in this section, you can have an area where there are harpies that are against the wall, and they can fly out, and you can have the harpies coming down and just harassing the characters, trying to pick them up off of the raft itself or knock them off. Just because they're cruel creatures, or possibly even because a couple of them might try and pick somebody up and try and eat them. So, because harpies aren't nice. The players have the option here as well, that not just fighting them off, But way up on the top of this, as the players are going around, you can say that you can see an old elven outpost that's up there. Maybe the players want to try and explore that. And so if that's the case, if they fight off the Harpies, then eventually they can try and work their way up the sides of this. They have to make climbing checks on these things right here to go up to the side and eventually make it up. There could be a giant eagle's nest I've got up here that may or may not be hostile, may or may not have some treasure and stuff in it. And then, of course, they can get up to here, and I would definitely reward them with some kind of magical item or treasure or something like that up here at the old outpost for the elves. That's obviously clearly been abandoned. But that's another whole other part of the adventure that's optional if they wish to take part in that. That's something they could do. Or depending on how much damage the raft is taken and how much damage potentially the players have taken, they may want to bypass that. That's fine too. That's up to them. But I would definitely let them know that on the top here of this walled off outpost is more than likely there's probably would be something of interest, possibly even a clue for why everything was abandoned. And then, of course, the river will come around. You've got some more 90-degree angles and stuff that you can play with. And then here you've got a territorial giant who he's literally just going to take his huge club and he's going to be slamming in the water. Again, don't forget there's going to be 2 sets of rafts there. So this is a mountain giant from the Mantic games. I think it's like Kings of War or something like that. But this huge dude right here, he's got a massive club with a massive reach. So again, he's going to be slamming down and trying bashing their raft, taking more damage. Again, it's possible it could splinter the raft completely or they could miss it. They can try and engage the giant from afar. They can try and beach the raft and just try and take him out completely themselves if they're feeling super brave. They can just paddle through as fast as they possibly can and try and dodge it. That's up to them, but how they want to handle it. And then, lastly, on this little thing, could be a few more hours later, they come across and there's a river spider who's got a web that's spread across the actual river itself. Of course, the river's flowing underneath it, but it's basically a self-created fly catcher. And as the players come through, I have to see whether or not they get stuck in the web, and then the big old nasty spider kind of crawls out onto the web and tries to cocoon up and or eat anybody that gets trapped in its web. And it'll be up to the players to try and free their friends or however they want to handle that. So, and of course, I've got a couple more corners around here, and there's always room for more stuff. So, again, even though it's all contiguous, doesn't mean that you have to do it in such a way where it's like, okay, as soon as they go around this corner, and then the very next round they're here, and then the very next round they're here. It could be that this is what happens first thing in the morning, and then an hour or so later, they get to this area where the Treants are attacking them, and then another hour or so, maybe early, or just around noontime, they get to an area that looks like it's possible they could do some camping. You could have some more rapids that happens in the early afternoon, say around 1 o'clock or so, and then maybe around 3 o'clock or so, you could have them deal with the Harpies. And then maybe 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or something like that. Let's say 5 o'clock, they can come here and they round this bend and they have to deal with the mountain giant. And then just as it's getting dark around 6 or 7, where it's harder to see the spider web that's been spread across the river itself, they may have to contend with the river spider. So that's the idea of the Raging Rapids. Hope you like it. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying my channel and you're interested in the content. Doesn't cost you anything and helps boost the channel. Lets me know that you guys like what you see. Please leave your comments and let me know your thoughts, and I will see you guys next adventure. Take care. Bye.